What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Super Gamer Boys. I'm your host, Colonel and most handsome dad, Garrett Morlang here. And boy, joining me this week, I guess it depends on what feed you're listening to. Maybe I'm joining them. I don't know. It's a little confusing. This is like weird multi-dimensional stuff, maybe. Joining me this week is from the Nintendo Cartridge Society. We have Patrick Ellers.
Garrett, thank you so much for joining us, or us joining you, or all of us joining together.
We're all joining together here. I guess, hang on, do we need to do two intros here? I introed Super Gamer Boys. Now, do we need to start over with the... Okay.
No, we'll record it. We'll record a thing introing us.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Also joining us this week is his partner in crime, Mark Mitchell. How's it going?
Yeah, it's going good. I realized with my background and the handheld mic, I feel like I am an on-the-scene reporter reporting from the opening of Super Mario Brothers 3. So wherever I am, I'm happy to be here.
Oh man, that is fantastic. I know. I feel like you should be like, you're like commentating like the Mario Kart race going on the Grand Prix.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Like
I do like the idea of Mark Mitchell as like an on the scene theater critic for the Mushroom Kingdom.
Yeah,
because you're standing in front of the Mario 3 backdrop right now. Yes.
Yeah.
I am live at the theater reporting on what is happening in the play.
Oh, fantastic. Well, for those of you who don't know who these folks are, they have a podcast, Nintendo Cartridge Society, which does episodes twice a week. Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Which is insane, and all about Nintendo. And they do some good stuff. You guys might actually know them from Super Gamer Book Club. It's been a couple years now, but they did the Holy Super Nintendo's Holy Trinity that we did was Super Mario World, Super Metroid, and Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. Is that correct?
Some would say the 3 greatest video games of all time.
Some would say that. Mm-hmm. Which you can go check out over on YouTube and podcasts. They're fantastic. Everyone should go check those out. They're great. Good old time. But yeah, thank you guys so much for joining tonight. It's been a couple years, and when Adrian said he got a hold of you guys, I'm like, yes, great. I don't know. It's been fun getting back with old friends. So appreciate you coming out.
Yeah. Fun to get back with old friends and, just like hop on another podcast of people fighting the good fight, having fun talking about video games.
Heck yeah. So yeah, if you're looking for all your deep dive Nintendo news from people who actually know what they're talking about, you guys have been in the Nintendo world for forever, kind of, right? Since you were babies, you're just waddling around diapers with a Nintendo controller in your mouth.
Yeah, it's we recently covered the 3 Donkey Kong arcade games, Donkey Kong Jr., and Donkey Kong 3 for a Patreon episode. And that's the first time that we've ever talked about a game that is older than either of us in the original Donkey Kong. But yeah, no, I think we both tumbled out of the womb, with a NES controller in our hands. So
yeah,
fantastic.
For sure.
Oh, very cool. Well, today we're going to be talking about 2 big Final Fantasy remakes in the works, if the Switch 2 will have a mouse or not, and how PlayStation might lean into more games like AstroBot. But first, we're going to give a shout out to our Patreon producers, Kajoma01, Crimson, Bumble Smash, and Carrie, and our Super Gamer sponsors, Julie Bates, Mama Bear, and David Matthews. If you want to be awesome like those folks, head over to our Patreon, patreon.com/supergamerboys. You can support us over there. Or go over to Nintendo Cartridge Society's Patreon. They do cool stuff as well. Yeah, we'll talk more about that later during the ad section. Shout out real quick to Jack Sriracha, Yate, and DJ Trooz for allowing us to use their music on our show. I don't know if you guys will keep it in on your side, because that disclaimer, I guess, this is going to be releasing on both of our feeds. And so we usually have background music that was given to us by these folks. If you guys don't want to use it, that's fine. But on Super Gamer Boys, yeah, go check them out. Links will be in the show description for those artists. Thank you so much to them for allowing us to have this fun little playlist to play in the background.
Garrett, how did you get hooked up with those artists, if I can ask?
Yeah, so Jack Sriracha Yate, I guess I'll peek behind the curtain, is the same person. but 2 different artist names. I don't think it's public knowledge. It's not like I'm blowing them up or anything. Connected with Adrian. Adrian knew of him and hooked us up. And so, yeah, that was cool. And then DJ Trooz is actually, we met him on Twitch through, I'm trying to remember who we met him through. Maybe, friends of the show, Eddie Martin. DJ Trooz is his artist name, but on Twitch, he's Trouser Schnauzer. He streams like almost every day nonstop. He's an amazing streamer. So if you want he's super into Digimon, Halo, like all that kind of stuff. Sometimes he'll do streams where he's making music. It's a blast to watch him. Got connected to him through that. And he was on a few episodes of Super Gamer Book Club and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of random happenstance, just falling into these artists, and they're gracious enough to allow us to use their music on their show. So it's been cool.
Yeah, cool. We've had our theme music forever from 8-Bit Betty, who is an artist that I went to college with by the name of Brian Tio. I'm blowing up his spot now. We usually don't say Tio's real name on the show. We always just say 8-Bit Betty. It's always just interesting to me where people find those connections and put their shows together. Yeah, no, it's we have a neat little community. It's just there's a lot of those things where we're looking for something, and then someone's like, oh hey, I know so and so who'd probably be willing to share some stuff, and I don't know. It's cool. Podcast communities are cool like that. You just never know who knows who, and where you're going to find the next thing you're looking for. So very cool. Well, with that, it's now time to check the mail, I think, which this week we just got another letter from Ranger. Famously, through the form submission on our website, he will not join the Discord and submit there like everyone else. He uses the contact us page on our website. Very good.
Which is great. So here's a little backstory too. We recently updated our website, and I almost got rid of the contact us page. And I was like, no, Ranger would throw a fit. He'd leave the show. He'd never write us again, never listen. So I kept it just for him. I almost wanted to name it the Ranger form submission instead of contact us, but
but it's good. It's good to keep those like archaic ways of contacting you, right? Like, I had a buddy today who called Nintendo actually because his son dropped a Joy-Con and it broke. So he was calling to get it replaced. And he was commenting on how weird and archaic it is that when you are like navigating a menu on a phone, it is still taking the cues from like the audio of the buttons that you're dialing like the phone with, right? That you're not doing a direct digital signal. You are making it make a sound, and then on the other end, it's detecting that sound and knowing what
There's
number
still
you pushed.
dial tone.
Wait,
yeah.
I didn't realize that's how that works. That makes a ton of sense. But I didn't realize that's what it did.
And the reason that we do that instead of having it's just like a direct button that you can like push on your phone is that it's making the current system backwards compatible forever because every phone makes those sounds. So, keep the archaic ways because then everyone can get in touch with you, including Ranger every week.
Including a Ranger. Oh, man. Well, here it is. It says, it's time for Ranger's now semi-weekly roundup. Let me start off by saying I live in a somewhat rural area located in my neighboring town. Wait for it. There's still a GameStop. What? Seriously? I struggle to understand how this GameStop location even came into existence. This has to be one of the last new GameStop locations ever added. I remember buying a Wii U and PS4 there, so it's been around at least that long, but I remember being shocked that a new GameStop location materializes as I would read that many locations around the country were closing at the time. Now, I hope you're sitting down for this, but I drove by months ago and the game half of the sign was removed and it just had the red stop portion of the logo attached to the building above the store. I laughed out loud and thought, wow, they lasted longer than I would have thought, but figured they left the stop part of the sign up to let everyone know that this location had closed. Shockingly, I brought it up to my buddy, and she explained that the location was in fact still open, and the game part of the sign just happened to fall off of the building. My headspace was trying to process this and thought, what a way to go, walking into GameStop and the game sign falls on you and crushes you to death. It is currently now back onto the building, and the store is still in full operation. Huh? Are we living in a simulation? Well, my questions for this week are, Do you have any GameStop specific memories from your gaming life? Good, bad, ugly? Did you buy any consoles, specific games that come to mind? I have to say, sadly, my last memory is of stepping foot into a GameStop. I just remember being relentlessly hounded by multiple staff to purchase whatever tier costs money from the Edge program. It was enough to leave a bad taste in my mouth and certainly left me with a lack of desire to visit again. I guess a fond memory would be buying a lot of Wii and Wii U physical games for my daughters at the time. It was fun because they had never had a Wii, so when we purchased a Wii U, we had backwards compatibility access to both libraries. It was like the floodgates had opened. P.S. Thank Goodness You're Here is the most surprising and hilarious game I've ever played. Shout out to Thank Goodness You're Here. That game is fantastic. I don't know if have you guys seen anything about that one, played that one?
I have heard that it's great. I haven't picked it up yet. It's one of those rare games that actually genuinely seems like it's funny. Like a lot of games strive for funny, but are not. But this one seems like it actually is.
Yeah, it's a fun one. I played through it last month, and it's just like a few hours you can get through it, which is nice. Quick little play. But yeah, developed by Cole Supper, published by Panic, and it is like just it's the perfect blend of like, I don't know, like, yeah, Adult Swim, like that adult, like just silly, goofy animation style. I don't know. I instantly fell in love with it. I think from what I understand too, I think it's based off of an actual town over in like England or something, which is great. Like they're just kind of like making fun of this town a little bit, but the town's in on it. Like it even says like with support from, this little place out there. I don't know. It's hilarious. It's hard to even explain. Like I couldn't even begin to tell you like the story, but it's a charming little like, hilarious game. Surprisingly so. Like again, I went into it thinking,
is it just
can it be that good?
Is it just like a little like comedy of errors kind of like people being in like small town mindset and just like misunderstanding each other?
Yeah, that'd probably be the best way to put it. So it's kind of like,
this is me guessing from what I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like you're this guy. You're tasked to go to this town and help solve these problems. And every time you walk into a room, like that's the name of the game. Thank goodness you're here. That's kind of like the phrase everyone keeps saying. Oh, thank goodness you're here. And they ask you to do some crazy off the wall job, which doesn't make sense. Like it seems like simple on the surface. Oh, can you clear this, my plumbing for me? My sink is plugged. And then like your little guy just like jumps down the drain and suddenly this crazy little mini game, picks up and you're just, running the stupid little characters along the way. And this is hilarious. Like your character doesn't speak the whole time. He's just like bouncing around, getting kicked to and fro and waddling up and down the streets looking for the next job. And it's, like I said, it's like cute, hilarious, kind of wholesome, but at the same time not. I don't know. It's a little bit of it's just a fun little game. Highly recommend, like you said. But back to his question. Are you guys frequenters, or were you in the past shoppers at GameStop? Any fond memories with that? Or first, EB Games. I'll throw EB Games out there since,
sure, or like a Babbage's or something.
Yeah.
First I want to throw out a theory about the GameStop sign losing the game part of it. Okay. Is it possible that they were in a transition to being a sushi stop? Sushi stop has the exact same sign except the word is sushi instead of game. Is that possible?
Really? That would be incredible. Imagine walking into the GameStop expecting games and it's sushi now. They're like, oh, we just haven't put the other half of the sign. Sorry, guys. Like, well, while I'm here, I guess I'll get some. I've never heard of Sushi Stop. Is that a chain like around you guys?
It is. I think they're mostly, or I mean, I've only seen them in Los Angeles. Mark, have you seen them anywhere else?
No.
Okay.
There was one next to the UCB theater in Hollywood that I think we ate at more times than we care to admit.
Yeah, it's like pretty like budget, casual, like sushi and other Japanese dishes. But yeah, exactly the same. Like same color scheme, same everything as GameStop. Yeah, and Sushi Stop. Yeah,
and just like GameStop, when you bring in your own sushi to try to sell it back, they really lowball you.
Yeah. Oh man, but they have deals once in a while where you can get on the subscription and get the free, magazine about all the new sushi coming out next month.
I don't really like Sushi Informer though. I think their editors have lost touch.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's set. I don't know if you've heard, but it's shutting down. Like they've ceased publication. It's just there's just not a
no more Sushi Informer. Wow.
Yeah, for sushi magazines anymore.
End of an era.
My favorite segment was Sushi and Farcer, where April Fools, they would always do like the joke.
Right, that's funny stuff.
Instead of
Right.
sushi, they would talk about ramen, and it was a good little joke. But
Right. Well, and they would always do the thing where it's like, it's our Nemo roll, and it's like, okay, it's real funny, guys.
okay, we get it. Oh man, I don't know. GameStop memories. I guess. I mean, I have memories of always going there, but I was never really part of like any like launch day. I know like Adrian has stories of like, going there like Halo or something like that, standing in line and waiting. But
yeah,
I think my only memory that comes to my mind, it's a good memory, is I'd saved up money. I don't remember the amount it was at the time, but whatever hundreds of dollars I needed to buy PS2. I had saved up all the bottles and cans I could. So 5-10 cents, just whatever, glass bottles, the plastic bottles, metal soda cans, everything. Saved my literal pennies to save up for a PS2. And I remember going in there and still needing to trade in a bunch, still not being close enough with all the garbage I had traded in for cash. So it's kind of bittersweet, because it's like I always got a great new console at the end of it. But looking back now, I think the biggest thing that makes me sad is how much I traded into GameStop for the new things, like games and systems that I wish I had today. So it's both
totally.
Man, like without that, I never would have been able to even experience the new thing. But at the same time, like, oh man, if I still had my PS2 from then, because I eventually even traded that one in that I bought from GameStop, or
it's the circle of life.
The circle of life. It's like, my PSP, trading that in. Like, what was I thinking? But so yeah, a little bittersweet memory. But that's my favorite part, was just like my dad worked at this for a road construction company, and at the office he had like trash bags set up outside. So it was like the whole business was in on helping me get this PS2. Like they even put a little sign on
that's
it
funny.
for Garrett's PlayStation, and people would throw their beer bottles or soda cans or everything in there, like bring them from home into work, throw them in there for me. It was really cool memory and then go in and actually get this console.
That is really cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. But
Mark, I know you're not a like a hang on to old hardware kind of guy. Did a lot of that stuff end up going through like GameStop and like getting like recycled into something new, or did you just pass that stuff on to like younger relatives?
Yeah, I actually just in the past year I went to a GameStop to trade in like my PS4, because I had like a PS4 that I hadn't used really for years. It was just sitting in my closet when the last time I moved was in 2021. And a small but important distinction. But yeah, 2021. And so my PlayStation 4 was just sitting there. Finally decided just to get rid of it, went to GameStop, got like a cash value for it. That transaction was fine. But no, normally, honestly, like I had so many Nintendo DSs that I went through, and now Garrett, same thing. I wish I would have held on to all of them. But at the time I was just like selling them on Craigslist or whatever. Yeah. But for me, like I have pretty fond associations with GameStops. I didn't visit it that often, but I have a really specific memory from like 2008 or 2009. So this was the Xbox 360 era. And I remember wanting to buy Silent Hill Homecoming, and like GameStop had it used. And so I remember going to GameStop because you could check the inventory online or whatever. And I remember, or maybe you couldn't. Anyways, for whatever reason, I found it at a GameStop. But thinking about it now, I realize how much like that era of GameStop was kind of what I missed from video stores like Blockbuster Video and stuff, where like physically going into a location and scanning the shelves, picking something off, like looking at the front and back of the box and just making a decision based on that. Like, I feel like that's something that is, I buy basically 99% of my games digitally. And I like I'm happy to have like my library digital and all that kind of stuff. But I do feel like the discovery on a digital store is much more complicated. I feel like you have to kind of know what you're looking for. It's hard to just browse a digital store versus I really miss being able to go into like a Best Buy or a GameStop and just kind of like, have all of these titles that are available to you and being able to like pick up the packaging, look at it, read a little bit about it. Sometimes I bought really bad games, but also sometimes I found things that I never would have experienced otherwise. And so that's something that I am grateful that like GameStop and indie game stores and like the retro game stores that are popping up I feel like they're so valuable for having that sort of like experience. It's the same sort of thing in my mind to what comic book stores offer, which is like a kind of like a community. Like you can go in there and in the best of them, they're excited to talk to you about these things. They're excited to like point you in the right direction. And I feel like GameStop has a reputation of not really doing that. But I think in the best circumstances, like that's, if you have like passionate employees, it's asking a lot, but you know what I mean? Like I do miss like the like visceral, like, just being able to browse a physical library of things and making a choice out of that. I think like I have fond memories of doing that at GameStop for sure.
And they always had so much too. Like that's like, because that's what it was. It was focused on the games. Where that's like the saddest thing now is to go into GameStop and it's all like Funko Pops and random garbage merch that will break after like 2 months.
Lots of Amiibo.
Yeah, and so like back in the day when it was like walls of games and they had like the new section and they're like, boom, there was a ton of stuff, used section, massive. And just to be able to flip through everything and see it. And because, like you're saying, like nowadays on digital, not only is it just hard to find, unless you know exactly what you're looking for, but I think it's also because on digital, like anyone can now just release a game and it's just there. Where like again, physical,
right?
Like there was a lot of games, but honestly, the quality was probably much higher just because there was a lot more steps to get a game on the shelf. It's not like, anyone in their garage could just make a game and throw it on the eShop or whatever. It's like, oh, okay, no, you got a developer, a publisher, and it might not be a great game, but it's something. It's not just shovelware kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and that's that shovelware thing. Like there's real predatory stuff going on right now on like the all eShops, right? Nintendo, Steam, everywhere, where games are released like multiple times as like deluxe editions, where like nothing has changed and they're all like stolen assets and stuff like that anyway. So yeah, we've never been more inundated with bad software than we are right now.
Well, and I also feel like being it like the GameStop model, in the like 20 years ago or whatever, it kind of leveled the playing field for people buying games. Because now like I buy things digitally and I can't lend that to friends, right? It's great for businesses. Like the death of physical media is great for businesses, but it's really bad for consumers. Like, yes, I bought Silent Hill Homecoming, I don't know, for $25 or something. Was it a great game? Not really, but I could return it to GameStop and get some sort of credit towards my next game. Or I could loan it to my friend and be like, this game is terrible, you should play it. You know what I mean? Like I had you had so many different like options, whereas now with digital libraries have just like changed that so much.
Yeah.
Mark, did when we both lived over there, did you ever go to that GameStop on Sunset Boulevard?
Only for like a couple of things. Like that is where Chuck and I bought Hyrule Warriors for Wii U. And brought it over to your house.
And then brought it back to my place to play it. Yes.
Because, Patrick was the only person that we knew that had a Wii U. And it's like, oh, this is like a multiplayer, like Zelda Muso game that we could play. But that's like one of a very few times that I went into that GameStop.
I have a story about going into that GameStop. In March of 2012, I was going to that GameStop to pick up a copy of Street Fighter Cross Tekken that I had pre-ordered. I was going to go and grab it at midnight because it was within walking distance of where Mark and I both lived. We lived on basically the same block. Didn't know that until we had met each other, it was a total happenstance thing. But anyway, so I'd walk down there at midnight to pick up my copy of Street Fighter Cross Tekken, and I forget if I had like called ahead to be like, "Hey, are you guys like open tonight for Street Fighter Cross Tekken?" And I don't know if I probably didn't say like for that game specifically, but they're like, "Yeah, we'll be open tonight." And I was like, "All right, cool." So I get there and there's a line out the door and like down the street, and down Sunset Boulevard at midnight, right?
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, okay, and I got there maybe like 11:50 or something. I was like, wow, I didn't realize there was this much buzz for Street Fighter Cross Tekken. Street Fighter Cross Tekken came out March 6th, 2012. Do you know what other game came out on that same day? It's Mass Effect 3. I was in the line with people waiting to buy Mass Effect 3. I had my little like printed out pre-order for Street Fighter Cross Tekken. So they were like checking everyone's pre-order data, like coming down the line. And everyone's showing Mass Effect 3, Mass Effect 3, Mass Effect 3, and I'm like, damn it. So I show for my Street Fighter Cross Tekken, and the guy checking me in was like, this guy's getting the real video game. And I was like, all right, cool.
That's awesome. They let you get it then? They didn't like be like,
yeah,
no, get out of here.
This
is a Mass Effect event. Get out of here.
I mean, the store was open. I had a pre-order,
Yeah.
They can't deny me.
That's hilarious.
But generally, like I think I definitely went through a phase of using GameStop as like my go-to place to pick up games, especially when my friends and I were living in Chicago. That there was like one sort of near my office and another one near where we lived. So like we would just go there, kind of a lot, just to, like Mark said, just kind of like browse around. But like that was also in the era when like every game had a giant chunky plastic peripheral that you needed to buy with it. So like that's where we got our Guitar Hero sets. That's where we got our Rock Band sets, was at a GameStop. I remember going into a GameStop the day that Street Fighter 4 came out. And I didn't have a pre-order for it. And the guys behind the counter made fun of me for not having a pre-order. And they were like, if you would have pre-ordered, you would have gotten this sweet bandana. And I was like, well, can I have the sweet bandana anyway? And they said, yeah, sure. So I got the sweet bandana in addition to my copy of Street Fighter 4.
That's amazing. I love how they tease you and they're like, take it. They don't, what are they going to throw in a trash can?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. It was cool though. It was red. It had like Ryu on it and it said Street Fighter 4. I think I still have it. I don't know. I think I still have it.
That's awesome. Oh man. So cool. Well, yeah, lots of, I feel like my memories are pretty similar too. Like it was just such a fun place. I was so magical as a kid. Like I remember just growing up there and parents taking you to the mall. Like ours were mainly in malls. Like they were separate buildings and walking by, electronic boutique and then EB Games. And suddenly the GameStop moved in, and just to like walk in and, they had all the new peripherals, all new like they had some collectible stuff in there. Not as much as they do now, but some collectibles like, oh, that's cool.
Right.
Like little statues and stuff, seeing all the games. And it's just like this magical video game wonderland.
The other,
cool.
There was like in the early days of GameStop and definitely in like the sort of like EB Games, right? Where like there would be enough of them in a small enough area where they would take on like different characteristics, right? Mm-hmm. Like there was at Regency Mall in Racine, Wisconsin, there was a GameStop in the mall, and then there was another GameStop like outside the mall next to the Applebee's, right?
Oh, okay.
And the one next to the Applebee's was like PC game focused. Like that's where they had like computer games. And the one inside the mall, that was like console games. So like you knew where to go, which GameStop. They weren't the same store. They were like slightly different.
Yeah, that's cool. That's actually kind of neat because then you can really like exactly what you're looking for. No, okay. Yeah. I'm going to go to this one, get the expertise I need, ask the questions I want to ask.
Swing by the Applebee's, get some fajitas. Yeah.
Some riblets.
Get some riblets.
The first video game I ever pre-ordered was at an EB Games, and it was putting in a pre-order for The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. and I got like the pre-order disc that came with it that had like, you know, like the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time and Master Quest. I think those were the two that were on the pre-order disc. And I just remember like that. I mean, like, I guess they still do, you know, like pre-order or special editions and like that sort of thing. But that was a very like magical experience for me.
How did GameStop land that deal? Because like, I think you're right. I think you could only get them at GameStops, right?
Well, mine was an EB Games, I think, but
or an EB or whatever. Yeah.
But like something like that. Yeah. Yeah. And this was before, you know, like the GameCube wasn't backwards compatible. There was no virtual console. So it was, you know, on a GameCube, it was the only way to play those games. I don't think they ever released it as like a paid disc.
No, well, and they never released, even on the Nintendo 64, never released the Master Quest version of Ocarina of Time. So, like, that was literally the only way to get that.
Crazy.
And then just as long as we're on like the subject of like EB/GameStop exclusives, there were also in the early days of Amiibo that there were a handful of them that were GameStop exclusive too. So you know, I remember when they were launching for a time when they were launching the Smash Brothers Amiibos in waves, that there would be like, okay, so these three you can get anywhere. Kirby you have to get from Best Buy, Rosalina you have to get from GameStop, and you know, like King DDD you have to get from Target or something like that. Okay. And so you'd have like all these different tabs open to do like pre-orders at these different places, and the GameStop ones were always so hard to actually land a pre-order for that on the message boards at the time, they were considered eBay exclusives because that's the only way you were going to pick them up was picking them up secondhand.
I do think it's interesting that there was like a time around like the end of the Wii era where it was like GameStop is where like people who are tuned into video games are going to shop, because I'm pretty sure one of those Wii like games that were brought to America late, those like Project Rainfall games like Pandora's Tower or Xenoblade Chronicles, like one or both or all of those were like GameStop exclusives, you know, where it was like, oh, okay,
Last Story,
like, yeah, where it's like, oh no, this is where people who are tuned in about video game news, like they will know to go to GameStop to get it.
Wow. Yeah. That's it's all the exclusive content that you could just get those early days. Like, is this? Yeah. I always loved, what was it? Wasn't there like a special edition, even like there'd be like special edition consoles and stuff that would come to like GameStop and EB Games too. Or I feel like like what was it? It was like I want to say like a PSP or something. Like it was like a handheld, maybe not PSP specifically, but I feel like there'd be like custom like designs, like, oh, you can only get it here. Like, I mean, like I want to say KB Toys, but that's not it. Toys R Us or something like that. And, you know, those types of places, like they always had like weird exclusive stuff. And I don't know, games, back in the day, video games stuff was just always, again, like, I don't know, I felt like they cared more like with having like cool exclusive stuff at these shops and stuff. Nowadays, everything's digital. So you can just be like, figure it out. But it's just so much more magical back then.
Totally.
Very cool. Well, with that, I think it's time we can move on to this next segment, which actually, I think, Patrick, I'm going to pass this over to you now.
Now it's time for a regular segment on our show. It's time for 433. In 1952, American composer John Cage wrote a piece called 433, wherein a performer or group of performers didn't play their instruments for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. For the purposes of this show, our instruments are talking about Nintendo. So for the duration of one performance of 433, Mark, Garrett, and I will talk about something not at all Nintendo related, thus fulfilling the contract of the piece. This is a regular segment on Nintendo Cartridge Society, and maybe not a regular segment on this show. But for 4 minutes and 33 seconds, we are going to talk about airplane travel anxieties. Mark, you were just flying and had something weird happen.
Well, yeah, I was flying home and, but got to divert. So I was flying into the Burbank airport, which is, for those of you who don't live in like the Los Angeles area, there's LAX, there's like, which is the big airport. And then there's the Burbank airport, which is tiny. It's relaxed. You don't have to show up as early. Like it's easier to get in and out of. Like it's the place to fly into. But my plane, we got all the way to Burbank and then diverted to Phoenix, and then had to figure out how to get back from there. But generally speaking, like I am an early airport arrival person. I like want to be there with plenty of time, so that way I feel relaxed. Like I'll eat the terrible airport food. I will do all of it just to not have to worry about like missing the plane. I've never missed a plane. What about you guys?
Yeah, I have never missed a plane either, but I'm right there with you. Get there early. I love how like, yeah, people talk about how terrible airport food is, and it is true. It's not great. But I don't know. For me, it almost feels like I'm not allowed to fly unless I've eaten the bad airport food. Like
it's part of the experience. It's part of the experience.
Like my wife will even like pack a bunch of snacks and like for the whole day, like, okay, we're going to be flying for like 8 hours to fly out to New York, see my family or something. And it's like we, I'll come home with more snacks in my snack bag than when I left, because like I collect the Southwest snacks. They hand me some and I'm like, oh yeah, maybe store those away. And meanwhile, I'm eating stuff in the airport and buying stuff. She's like, I brought food. I brought like a sandwich, like eat it. I'm like, no, why not? I can eat at this Chick-fil-A or this random sushi spot that doesn't have good sushi, but it's here, you know?
But it's also the opportunity and the permission to have a drink at any time of day, right? When you are in the airport or on a plane, the rules regarding alcohol go out the window. If it's 10:30 in the morning and you're waiting for your flight, you can have a beer and it's fine.
That's fine. Totally cool. Man, I think the most. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh God, no, go ahead, Garrett.
Oh, I just talked about airport anxiety, so because I shared my bad food experience, but it's not necessarily an airport anxiety. The most anxiety-inducing thing that happened to me was we were flying into. It was actually probably last spring, about a year ago, actually, from now, last February, flying into Denver, and they were getting a huge snowstorm, and they didn't divert, but we just like circled for 20, 30 extra minutes. And it was to the point like the turbulence was so bad, and the whole time just sitting there like, we're going to die. This is it. Like, we're going to die. And like, I'm sure like, obviously everything ended up fine, but in the moment, like that's just so terrifying, because they kept trying to. They'd come in like, all right, we're going to attempt to land. They'd come down, and then like, nope, we had to pull off again. I think they did like 3 or 4 times. And by the 4th time, I was like, just stop, just crash into a mountain or something. I don't even want to land anymore. Like you just stop this.
You don't want to hear about them trying anymore. It's like, let me know when you've been successful.
Do or do not. There is no try.
Yeah,
right?
That's right. Follow Yoda.
Oh man.
I have in recent years also become like a get to the airport early kind of guy, but largely because that's Sarah's MO, is that like she always wants to be to the airport early. And I think if it were left up to me, I would push it later and later until I finally did miss a flight, and then I would, massively correct in the opposite direction. But yeah, it's I do tend to get there early now, and I'm not as excited about eating the bad food at the airport. I usually go into like hibernation mode when I fly, where I'm like, I'm just going to shut the whole body down. We're not taking in a lot of new food. I'm not going to poop until I get to my destination.
That's a good call.
I shut everything down. I have a hood up, headphones on. I'm out.
Oh man. Yeah. The less you have to use an airplane bathroom, the better. Like, honestly, like don't drink any water. I'm always so dehydrated at the end of the day and like so messed up, but I was like, it's worth it. It's worth it.
I was on an Air Canada flight from Montreal to LA, and they had no potable water on the airplane, and they knew it, and they were like, this is just the deal with this airplane. And so instead, in the bathroom sink, they had just thrown like 100 hand sanitizing wipes, just being like, deal with it, you animals. This is what you have.
That is wild.
Well, I guess we'll never know. We were accompanied today by a timer on my phone. Garrett? That's the end of 433.
That's it. That's a fun little segment. That's fun. Maybe we need to introduce something like that on. No, I don't know if I could. All right. Well, with that, it's now time for the nerdy nudes. And this is normally the part where Adrian goes, it's now time for the nerdy nudes. And, fun little bit. Rest in peace, Adrian.
He's not dead.
He's not dead. Maybe. I don't know.
If he did, and one of his final acts on this earth was to book us on this show.
Like, joke's on you guys. You all take over the show now. It was his wish all along, is for us to be together and be friends and just combine our shows together.
Sweet.
So here we go.
See, now it's sweet. I like it now.
All right. Let's get into these news stories then. This first one is coming to us from VGC, written by Jordan Midler. We have, here, I should probably switch over on the podcast thing, huh? Live stream went down, but you know what? We're rolling with it. We still got video we got a YouTube audience we gotta make happy. All right. This first news story comes to us from VGC, written by Jordan Midler. 2 big Final Fantasy remakes are reportedly still in active development. According to a noted industry insider, Nate the Hate, who has a record of revealing information about video games ahead of their official reveal, both titles, which have been rumored for several years, are still on the way. Replying to a user on X who asked about the status of both games, Nate the Hate said, both remain in active development. Final Fantasy IX remake isn't expected to see release in 2025. Maybe we'll see it launch in 2026. Final Fantasy IX was originally released in 2000 for the PlayStation. It was directed by Hiroki Ito, who later directed Final Fantasy XII, and the game was re-released in 2010 as a PS1 classic for PS3, PSP, with Vita support arriving in 2012. Blah, blah, blah. It's more about Final Fantasy IX, but Final Fantasy Tactics is the other game Nate the Hate mentioned, was initially released in 1997 for PlayStation. The game was developed by Yasumi Matsuno, who would go on to develop Final Fantasy XII. And so that's kind of the state of things. Again, an industry insider seems to generally know things, saying they're still working on these games. I guess to throw it to you guys here, my question is, because Final Fantasy remakes being more a thing now with Final Fantasy VII, obviously, and possibly now 9 and Tactics coming, I guess I'm curious if you guys have played these games, the original games, and are these games you would pick for a remake, or are there other Final Fantasy games you feel like you would rather have coming? Mark, I'll throw to you.
Yeah, I have. I really love Final Fantasy IX. So I didn't play any of these games when they were first released, but during that like Xbox 360 era, I had a friend who had a PlayStation 2, and so I borrowed his PlayStation 2 and played a bunch of these classic, PlayStation era RPGs, and Final Fantasy IX was one of them. And I really loved Final Fantasy IX. Tactics, I remember my cousin having and just not understanding Tactics at all. It's a game that I've still never beaten and really put that much time into. But I think for me, my big question about both of these is when they say remake, what form of a remake are we talking about? Because Final Fantasy, the Final Fantasy VII project is so huge. It's like a reimagining of the game. Plus it's, over 3 titles. And is that what they're planning for Final Fantasy IX? Is that what they're planning for Tactics? Tactics to me seems like it could easily be a game, maybe, but 9 is similarly huge like 7. And so are they planning for that to be a trilogy? The trajectory of the 7 remakes makes me think that probably is not the best idea. But does that mean that these are like HD 2D games? I have so many questions about what this means for games of this scope. Like, what is a remake nowadays?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned that like the trajectory of like the like sales response to the second Final Fantasy VII remake, Rebirth, is like, just thinking about the cultural impact that Final Fantasy VII has as like its own distinct brand, as separate from the rest of the Final Fantasy series, that like it is having a hard time sustaining a remake trilogy of games. And like 9 was a big game. It's a good game. I like it a lot, but like it had nowhere near the cultural impact of Final Fantasy VII, right? Like even before we start digging into remakes, Final Fantasy VII really is like a base game, 3 little sequel games, and a movie, right? Whereas Final Fantasy IX was just Final Fantasy IX. There
was also a rumor or announcement from 5 years ago at this point that they were making a Final Fantasy IX anime that I don't think ever has aired to my knowledge. I don't know that it was ever released in Japan or anywhere else for that matter. Maybe it was. Maybe it was another one of those things where it came out and maybe didn't make the cultural impact they expected. So maybe they are planning to make it like a cross-media type experience. But I think you're right, Patrick. 9 just has a lot of people who love it, but definitely doesn't have the cultural cache of a Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah. I would also just add that, and I don't think this, matters for, like the business side of things, but like the themes of Final Fantasy VII being about like the excesses of a greedy corporation, like overwhelming the natural world, fits so perfectly with the kind of like maximalism of the Final Fantasy VII remakes that like it feels like a perfect blend of like the bloat in Rebirth to me is like part of the artistic statement of the game and of like the story, and that's just not really part of 9. So like if they made 9 into a trilogy of remake action RPGs, I'd be like, I don't know that makes sense, but you could just really like a nice like redone everything version of 9 I think could be a killer title, right?
Yeah, like you're saying, if they don't try to like reimagine it, and it's just we are going to remake 9, maybe not in the HD 2D style, but similar to what they've done with Dragon Quest 3, just maybe in its own art style and its own like engine that hews closer to what Final Fantasy 9 was. But you're also like, is there that much of a market for that, or are we in like Secret of, or like the Mana series where they have been remaking those and creating new ones, and they all just seem to have kind of a middling response. I don't know. It's really hard for me to imagine what this looks like.
Yeah. As a new Final Fantasy fan myself, because I had never really played one until Final Fantasy VII Remake. And then I was hooked. I got on the Rebirth, jumped on 16. Like I purchased 15, haven't played it yet still, but it's like one of those things where like, okay, I'm wanting to get into it more and more and more. And I'm interested in the more classic titles because I just hear about how incredible they are. 9 is one of them. I guess from, a wish for me, like what I hope it is, like I kind of hope it is a full-blown remake. It doesn't have to be reimagining, like you're saying, like with Final Fantasy VII, what they're doing with that. But man, to see that like really completely expanded into like updated graphics and, combat style and all that stuff, like I would be a blast to play, as a, again, more modern Final Fantasy fan, like that would turn me on immediately to jump in there. And not that I'm against playing the classic, the original one, but it's definitely more enticing to be like, oh, okay, another game that's, similar, but, just not split into 3 parts. Like, honestly, having it just in one game would be nice, not having to wait, 6-7 years to play all 3 parts or whatever it's going to end up being at the end of 7. Does sound enticing.
Can I bring up something that may send a chill down Mark's spine? That if they remake Final Fantasy IX now, they'll have to have voice actors for the characters of Vivi and Quina.
I know, but if they were going to do an anime, I guess they were planning to do it anyways.
That's a good point. Yeah,
but no, I do. I think it totally, because the model for these that you kind of want to see is like the Capcom Resident Evil remakes, right? Like all of those have been like so faithful, but also modernizations that make it so exciting for newcomers to play, where they're easy to recommend. It's easy to recommend. Like you should absolutely check out Resident Evil 2, and the remake is the like perfect way to do it.
Right.
With Final Fantasy 9, like I really liked Final Fantasy 9, but even when I was playing it in like 2009, I was like, oh, it sure would be nice if this had quality of life updates, if I didn't have to wait so long for the transitions between battles and all that kind of stuff. I really think for me, the question is one of like scope, like how do they do this in a way that is sustainable, which to me, like from a business perspective, to me feels like a single game. But the world of Final Fantasy 9, the game it spans like 3 discs or something on the PlayStation. Wow. Like 4 discs. Like
4 discs.
It's a huge game, and so what does remaking that look like in a way that is not Final Fantasy 7? I don't know that much about Tactics. What about you, Patrick? Did you play the original Tactics?
Yeah, I never finished it, but this was a common rental for me as a kid. So yeah, I don't know. Like every time they make they made a new Tactics Advance is like none of them are like the exact same game, but they're all like pretty similar. I do think that there's probably enough like between battle stuff to flesh out in Final Fantasy Tactics that like a remake of that could be like big and meaningful and successful. And also just like if they were to release a new game in the Final Fantasy Tactics series right now, I feel like that would be a big pop too. So
especially with like a 2D HD art style, like people go nuts.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's tough though. Cause like, what's that? The name of the game? Triangle Strategy. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
That's basically what that is. But Triangle Strategy was like so far up its own butt with its lore, and like the cutscenes between battles in that game were like an hour long each. I think I played through the first 3 missions in it. Hey, dig in, man. It's a beautiful game.
Sounds like a Hideo Kojima game. I'm all about that.
Kinda, yeah.
Oh man.
But yeah, I don't know. I sort of think that like a Tactics remake would be just as good as like a new Tactics game. And that a 9 remake would just be kind of a tough sell. Mark, you were mentioning like just quality of life improvements, and like the releases of 7, 8, and 9 as they exist right now on all modern platforms, do have where you can like speed up battles, and you can have it go at like double, triple, quadruple speed. You can do EXP boosts and all the gold boosts, all this kind of stuff. Turn off random encounters, so that like the versions that exist right now are a lot easier to play than it was on the original PS1. So some of what you're asking for does exist already.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Although I found when I was playing the Chrono Cross Radical Dreamers edition, that even with those quality of life stuff, there still is like, I could see how it'd be difficult for somebody who's never played these games before to get into them with like the pre-rendered backgrounds and like, the camera changes when you go from one location to another, and like trying to figure out like, oh, is this thing in the world something that I can interact with? Oh, it's not. It's just like a pre-rendered thing. But yeah, I mean, you're right. It's not impossible to get into, and that's a good point that the most recent releases do have a lot of ways for you to kind of cut through the annoying pieces of it. But I think you have a good point about Tactics. I think of Tactics as like a well-liked game, but I don't know that a remake of Tactics would really...
Right.
I don't know who that's for, to be completely honest. Like, why not just make a new Tactics game if you're going to do it?
Yeah. Which they, to the earlier point, sort of did with Triangle Strategy.
Yeah. I don't know.
I feel like I ate that word, triangle strategy.
I guess I feel like Square Enix is just kind of baffling to me in a lot of the things that they've been doing recently. And the fact that both these games allegedly are still in development when at least 9 has been rumored since what, like 2021 or something like that?
Long time.
Yeah.
Means that whatever, Square Enix in the past few months has been talking so much about changing their development structure. And it seems like they're really trying to make structural changes. And it will be interesting. I don't know that we'll ever know, but I do wonder like how these games are or not affected in that change in strategy. Like maybe Tactics never sees the light of day. Maybe Final Fantasy IX changes scope or something. We'll probably never know. But part of the stated like realignment of priorities is doing fewer exclusive games, right? So if they are going to do something with Final Fantasy 9 that is like a full-fledged remake, but maybe they just like keep the scale of it down so that it can run on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One and Switch 2, that it can just be sold to a wider audience than the remake and rebirth, which were PlayStation 4 and 5 exclusives respectively. So.
Or to that point, like even if they stick with Tactics, like maybe 9 doesn't see the light of day, but Tactics, it comes out and it's like a mobile game. Like I could almost see a mobile version of Tactics existing as well, and kind of being like on the go, like, oh, do a battle here and there kind of thing, do a mission. I don't know, like a simplified version, which I don't know if that's what people are asking for. And I haven't played the original, but I know, because I know they had an iOS version of the original Tactics game, because my buddy played it to death, and he's like, you got to get this, it's in the App Store, go play Tactics, because he remember playing the original on PS1 or whatever, and you can
play it for $14 right now.
Yeah, exactly. So like if they made just a more like maybe not a remake, but made a modern version, made a new version, put it out on iOS, and I could charge full price for the thing, I don't know, a full-fledged game, like if that's what they're looking for, is more multi-console games, like it'd be perfect on a Switch, it'd be perfect on a phone, on an iPad, on a whatever, and on console even if you want it. Like maybe unfortunately that means 9 doesn't see the light of day, which I would hope not, but I don't know, you never know.
We'll see. It's not that we'll never know. We will know someday.
We will know someday. It might be 40 years from now and the game still doesn't come out, then we'll know, okay, they canceled that one, they probably canceled it. All right, let's move on to this next news story from The Verge, written by Jay Peters. Nintendo patents show the Switch 2 Joy-Con may indeed work like a mouse, and so might a new controller. Newly published Nintendo patents show that the company has been exploring a version of its Joy-Con controllers that can work like a computer mouse, a feature Nintendo has hinted will be coming to the Switch 2. In its Switch 2 teaser video last month, Nintendo showed 2 Joy-Con controllers sliding along the ground, much like you'd move a mouse. But mouse-like functionality may not just be limited to Joy-Cons. The patents also show that Nintendo has explored adding mouse-like functionality to a split controller with a larger, more traditionally sized grip. Images in one patent show a Joy-Con being held horizontally with the SR and SL buttons facing downwards and a person's thumb on the control sticks. This seems to indicate that the optical sensor would be facing downwards so that you can hold and move the controller on a surface like a mouse. Another image shows the left Joy-Con being used upright while the right Joy-Con is used in the mouse mode. Imagine WASD, but with your Switch controllers. In a machine translation of the patent, which is in Japanese, the term a mouse operation sensor appears 28 times, which suggests that there will be technology inside the controllers that makes them work like a mouse. There's a lot more of the article, but we get the point. Mouse functionality coming to Switch. All I got to say, I just need to say that right here at the top. Does this mean we're finally getting Mario Paint to Nintendo Switch Online? That's all I want. I need Mario Paint.
I mean, I badly need that too. There was, a couple months ago now, there was someone was digging into the Nintendo Switch Online, Super NES library, digging into the back end code, and support for the mouse was added to it, or at least the programming language to accept that was added to it. And so I got super excited, being like, will we see Mario Paint come in? Will they release the Super NES mouse as another? NSO exclusive thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, Mario Paint is one of my like all-time games. I absolutely loved it. But like, I don't know. I see a lot of potential in this for Nintendo's like other creative suite kind of games, like Mario Maker, like Game Builder Garage, all this kind of stuff that they like. I don't know. I feel like had a harder time supporting in the Switch era, but where like the original Mario Maker was such a big deal on Wii U, and I think part of that is just owed to the fact that it's so easy to make levels with the touch screen and the stylus, and it just was like a little bit harder to do that on the Switch, and so people made fewer levels, and it was just less of a like video game cultural moment than the original was. And I wonder if they can do, with a Super Mario Maker 3 or a, Mario Kart Maker or whatever, Zelda Maker, that just has like mouse support and then is, so much more accessible for people to actually use.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, real quick, I want to pick your brains. Like, is there a chance they utilize this to even bring like DS and 3DS functionality to Nintendo Switch Online? Like,
yes.
Could we possibly see some of those games with this mouse functionality as well?
I don't really know if I'm trying to, now that you're saying that, I'm trying to think how like mouse functionality would make that better than what, like, yeah, I guess I'm not sure. I'm not really sure how mouse functionality would improve that or like make that possible, because I feel like the big barrier for the DS and 3DS support is more like, how do we handle dual screen in docked mode? But I guess actually, now that I'm saying that out loud and thinking it through, I guess if you had it docked, but you could use the mouse input in place of like the touch screen, that maybe that would, maybe that is the way to kind of like get past that barrier. Because I'm imagining something like Phantom Hourglass, right? Where like so much of the input of that is like you control everything. You control Link, everything through that bottom screen. And so in handheld mode, that makes sense. But in docked mode, that's much harder. But I guess, maybe you could use that mouse functionality built into a Joy-Con to kind of like replace the bottom screen when it's plugged into the TV. What do you think, Patrick?
Yeah, well, and I mean, you could even like using the mouse, using like mouse on one half and Joy-Con in the other hand, like that's a good substitute for like Kid Icarus Uprising, right? And probably a more comfortable way to play that game. And also like Metroid Prime Hunters, right? Like all of these things that they were like finding weird little workarounds for on the original DS or 3DS that might actually just work better with a mouse. But like, they're just like the other touchscreen things. Like, would a Brain Age game be more accessible with a mouse? Would a Nintendogs game be more approachable with a mouse? Would our beloved Famicom Detective Club games be easier to play with a mouse? Like, yeah, I mean, maybe, yeah.
The thing that stood out to me from the patent is how uncomfortable it looks holding a Joy-Con and like trying to manipulate the buttons that way. Like, and so it made me think like, as a point and click thing, like playing Roller Coaster Tycoon Classic or something where it doesn't require Twitch accuracy, like a Call of Duty or something. It's like, okay, for something like Mario Paint, a creation game, a point and click adventure game, I can see how the Joy-Con would work. But for something like, like an online shooter like Metroid Prime 4 or something like that, it doesn't feel like the Joy-Con would be the great way to do that. But if they do have, third-party accessories, or even this like bigger controller that they show in the patent that is kind of like a Pro controller but split in two halves, that it would maybe be a bit more ergonomic. Maybe that could work, because I know people don't like playing on the Joy-Con in general, and I've always found that to work fine. So I don't know, maybe if you have little like tiny kid hands, you'd be able to use it for like Twitch shooters. But that's the part that really stood out to me. It looks so uncomfortable. Their fingers are like so cramped trying to manipulate any of those buttons. Yeah,
like I'm looking at it. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it. But basically, the two fingers are on like the trigger buttons. Your thumb is on the analog stick. But then, like, your ring finger and your pinky are like just tucked under to help support the Joy-Con so it doesn't flip over. And it's like this weird little claw you got going on. It looks extremely uncomfortable.
Well, and like you just think about like how when you're actually using a mouse, how much of like the palm of your hand is resting on like the butt of the mouse. Right. And like that doesn't exist on the Joy-Con. So it seems like the kind of thing that like it'll be able to do, but like no one's going to want to do it. And if they release like a separate mouse controller for it that actually is an ergonomic thing, then I'm on board, then I'll buy it and whatever. Totally. And that the like Joy-Con is like a matter of last resort for the mouse controls, then okay.
Maybe if it's Bluetooth, you can just use any old mouse. Maybe you can just connect any mouse.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
That'd be sick. That'd be sick, honestly.
But please don't rob me of the Super NES mouse, please.
No. Yeah, we definitely need.
I just want an opportunity to spend $50 on that thing.
100%. And even thinking like beyond like retro game, like applications, but getting like the new, what is it, Civ 7 that just came out? Like, could that come to Switch 2 and have like a mouse? Not keyboard support, but mouse support and stuff like that. Like that would make that type of game so much easier, because sometimes that's such a pain in the butt, those games that have like a cursor and you gotta like, with the analog stick, like drag across.
Totally.
It's like, it can be so slow. And even if you, speed up or heighten the sensitivity, okay, now it's too fast. It's just hard to fine tune that stuff and make it comfortable where just to be able to like this quick, like, just move around like, oh man, like doing these, bring more games like that to the Switch and make it just easier to control would be great. Would be awesome because there's not really a lot of those point and clicks. Like there are some point and clicks, but again, that's the gripe is it's like it doesn't feel great, but it gets the job done.
Right. But there are a lot of games that I feel like we've like fallen into like, okay, I guess this is an okay way to play it, like a Picross game, or we've got a new Professor Layton game coming out this year. Is that when World of Steam comes out?
Oh yeah,
this year, next year sometime.
I think you're right.
But like, all that kind of stuff is like, oh yeah, no, this is just more intuitive to, use a mouse for. So, and if they lean into it, it's all the big Nintendo ifs, right? Like, if they actually, treat that as like a cornerstone of the experience going forward, are they going to be creating games for the mouse the same way that they created games for Wii remotes? Then like we might be in business, but it could also be a thing that they abandon right away.
What is the mouse controller equivalent of ARMS for the Switch 2? Like what like new IP are they going to create around that? Or like what is the snipper clips equivalent? But you're right. Does it make Animal Crossing different? Does it make Pikmin? Does it make like, some of these existing IP? Is it just like another option that makes or Mario Kart 9 or 10, whatever they end up calling it, how there were motion controls for Wii? Do they now introduce like a new control scheme that's mouse focused that will completely change the way we play Mario Kart from here on out? You get golden mice if you're playing with the mouse controls.
It's so funny that Nintendo would be like embarking on like a mouse interface as like the computing world is moving away from mouse interfaces, right? That like everything is like touch screens now, and Nintendo's just like, I don't know, we've been there. We don't need to do that anymore.
Been there, done that. Oh man, yeah, I don't know. It's cool. As goofy as some of these gimmicks can be that they come up with, like 9 times out of 10 they're fun. Like I don't know, and they come up with some fun ways to implement it most of the time. So I don't know. I look forward to it. I'm looking forward to the Switch 2 Direct just in general. Like I cannot wait to finally see what the heck this thing is. I'm bummed there's not going to be games at it because that Direct, it's happening in April. Is that right, or is it March?
Wait. What? There's not going to be games at it?
No, there'll be games. Garrett, come on.
They said they're not showing any games. It's just hardware.
No, come on. No way. Who said that? Where did they say that?
Nintendo said that. They said that in a tweet. Hang on. I'll Google it.
Yeah, because that would be, to me, that would be totally, if that cuckoo bananas. Like that would be truly crazy. Because I don't know what else they can show off without software.
Without showing off games, yeah.
One thing that I feel like is so different with the Switch 2 is like the Switch 2 hardware reveal was neat. It was exciting because they were officially acknowledging the Switch 2 and we saw it and everything. But because it's so iterative from everything that we can tell, it's like, okay, it's cool that this exists, but the software is going to be what matters. Like the software is going to sell this thing. And that would be shocking to me if the April Direct does not talk about software.
I'm having a hard time finding it. I feel like it was a tweet and they, like I said, like they announced the date and then I could have swore like there's like a response to it saying like it's just going to focus on hardware. But no, it doesn't make sense. Like how do you show off the hardware and not show games? Like I feel like by default there's going to be something, but
yeah.
It would just be profoundly boring. Like how do you make that exciting, right?
Yeah.
We're already getting up at 6 o'clock in the dang morning to watch this thing.
100%. Yeah, I don't know. Can't find it. It's hiding from me, but maybe I'm wrong. That happens. That's happened before. Yeah, I found a tweet here and it doesn't say anything like that. I thought I remember seeing like an IGN article about it, like they were concerned about it, but I don't see it here. So we'll move on. We'll ignore that. But cool. Well, let's move on to the next news story here. This will actually be the last news story, and then we have new releases, which is not normally part of our thing, but I know Patrick added a new release we'll talk about after this news story. So here we go. Last news story is from VGC, written by Andy Robinson. PlayStation says it's planning to release more family games like AstroBot. Speaking during an earnings call on Thursday, Sony President Hiroki Totoki highlighted the Team Asobi platformer's recent award success and said that it validated its intentions to expand its family offerings in the future. At the Game Awards 2024, our first-party title AstroBot won 4 categories, including Game of the Year and Best Family Game, the most of any title, he said. In addition, the live service game Helldivers 2, which was released in February last year, won Best Ongoing Game and Best Multiplayer Game awards. The fact that titles and genres we are planning to expand in the future, including titles for families and live service games, have received these awards is a major stride towards building a broad title portfolio. AstroBot has been a critical hit for PlayStation in a genre it's less frequently targeted in the modern era. AstroBot won Game of the Year at the Game Awards, Game of the Year at New York Game Awards, and earned numerous outlet accolades, including VGC's Game of the Year award. According to Sony, the title sold 1.5 million units in its first 9 weeks, a significant chunk of which was to new players. In Europe, AstroBot is said to have outperformed virtually any non-Super Mario new 3D platforming game released in the last decade. Commenting on the game around its launch, PlayStation Studio boss Herman Hulst claimed the AstroBot IP was a very, very important brand for PlayStation going forward. Astro is very, very important to PlayStation, he said. Obviously, we had the pre-install with the PS5 that millions have embraced and loved, and I think that's becoming a little bit of a platform to launch this new game now. It's remarkable that a very small team is able to deliver a game that is so big. It's really become a great game in itself, and it's become a celebration of everything PlayStation at this point. So, very interesting future possibly ahead for PlayStation, as they're not really known as, at least in the modern era as like the family-friendly gaming console. Back in the day, they had a lot more like mascot games to Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, stuff like that, but not so much recently. And it could be taking a turn, which I'm stoked by. I'm so excited about that aspect. More kids, more games for my kids to play. My son, he's 7. He loves AstroBot. I've had him start playing through the first one that came free on the console, and that's like one of his favorite games on the PlayStation. He plays it all the time. But I thought actually, Patrick had mentioned earlier, it'd be fun to chat about this because, as you mentioned before the show, like this is generally Nintendo's wheelhouse, and PlayStation's kind of looking to get into that. So yeah, I don't know. What are some of your guys' thoughts on PlayStation? You think that's is this good? Is this bad? Is this a threat to Nintendo? I don't know.
I mean, I think it's good. That. PlayStation developed such a like specific brand over the course of like the PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4 generation of this like gritty, grown up, but like, grown up in a very like 14-year-old boy kind of way. Third person action narrative focused game. And like, that's sort of just been like their prestige brand for a while now. And like, I like a lot of those games. I'm a big fan of the Uncharted series. I like God of War. I like Last of Us. But like, those are such like, I don't know. They feel like solitary or like dour experiences, even the ones that are like based on fun. And like, part of the reason that Mark and I do a show about Nintendo is that we're just like drawn to these brands that are like more fun and interesting and like a little bit weird and colorful. And, it would be nice to see another big like stakeholder in the video game space chasing after that kind of game and that kind of audience. You say that AstroBot is like one of your son's favorite PlayStation games. Hey, me too. The AstroBot is great. Astro's Playroom was awesome, and I would kill for them to have more games like that. I can't get in always to like a new Horizon Zero Dawn or whatever, but like a fun, cool platformer with colorful characters and stuff, I'm there every time.
Yeah, I think for the longest time, Nintendo and Sony have kind of been, like there is crossover in the audience for sure, especially you don't have a system as successful as the Switch without there being a like crossover and audience between the two. But I would say that, for the most part, they haven't treated themselves as each other as competition. Whereas like Xbox and Microsoft are really going for the same audience. And I think Nintendo, I think it'll be good if there is competition in that space. I think it'll drive a lot of, like innovation in a way where like, like Nintendo really hasn't had to compete very much for that like family audience. I also think for PlayStation, it is like, he was talking about how, hey, it's remarkable that a small team like this was able to do this. One of the driving problems for both Sony and Microsoft is how expensive these kind of like prestige cinematic, narrative games are, how expensive they've become to produce. Whereas something like AstroBot was able to be created with a much smaller team with a, like much more reasonable budget, presumably. And so that opens like up a whole new opportunity for Sony that they've kind of been neglecting. And so I think that will make it, it'll make it really interesting. I will say, however, that because it's not Sony's bread and butter, I can absolutely see them abandoning this strategy if it does not pay dividends, right? Like AstroBot being successful is one thing, but creating multiple, family hits in that same vein that isn't just that single franchise, like that's another thing. And so just like we've seen, they mentioned live service. So funny for them to be talking about live service when they've, been having some of these big misses that have been very costly. And have been canceling a bunch of the ones that aren't even out yet. They're just like, nah, exactly,
never mind.
Yeah. It's made them
or canceling one that they just put out.
Yeah, it's made them rethink their strategy. Now, of course, probably the cost of like a miss on a family game of the scale of AstroBot is different from the miss of Concord. The financial hit they take. But I do think this is a now strategy, but we'll see how it actually pans out for them. Because I do feel like we've kind of been here before in the PS3 era with Little Big Planet, and they went all in on Sackboy and all that stuff, and they weren't really able to turn it into anything else. But it also wasn't the driving strategy. So I don't know. I think it's good news for everybody, and it'll be really interesting to see how it evolves over the next few years.
Yeah, well, it's actually commit to it, because that's my biggest fear. And you kind of brought it up, is like they are so quick to just abandon ship, or they half-ass something and then they're like, well, why didn't it work? It's like, well, because there was so much heart and soul in AstroBot, or whatever. And then they're like, let's make another family game. And then there's like, let's throw some random team who doesn't really care or doesn't normally do that. And it's just like, then it fails and they're like, wow, this doesn't work. It's like, well, try. All right. I don't know. That's my biggest fear of the PlayStation recently is you get this teams that kill it and really try and really love it. And you get these other ones that are just like, wait, why are they working on that? Like, what's going on here? Like, why I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, you can look to the live service games. You can look to PSVR 2. You can look to the Vita, like all of these things in the last, 15 years that they like introduce support a little bit and then are like, meh, that's not really what we do. I do think it's also, Garrett, did you have the total sales numbers for AstroBot, like how well it sold?
It didn't say in the article, but I can Google it real quick. I can take a look. Okay.
Because it's just like it's important to keep in mind like the scale of these successes. Because Spider-Man on PlayStation 4 sold like 22 million copies. It's that's a scale of success that like AstroBot's not even going to ever come like anywhere near, right? Or I mean, maybe someday, but like currently, its numbers are way lower than something like a mega success like that. I just don't think it's successful enough to be like the like change the standard for what PlayStation is putting their money behind.
So the only number I can find is as of November they sold the 1.5 million units. So that's basically that's the last number they announced. It was 1.5 million units, making over 100 million in revenue from a 65-person team over 3 years. So but that's they didn't really. I'm sure they've made more sales, but so it's not putting out quite as big numbers as like Spider-Man and some of these other big ones are. They're putting like 3.
Maybe an unfair comparison. Yeah.
But I mean, nothing to shake a stick at.
Right.
Interesting. Well, I don't have much more to say about it, but I am interested in this. I hope they actually try with this initiative and don't just like let it kind of like fall away and I don't know, turn into another failure that in their failure belt, another notch in the belt, of stuff they've given up on.
Garrett, do you have a PlayStation game or game series that you would want to see them revisit with a family focus?
Like for family focus? Man, I would love for them to go back to Spyro I always loved. Like when they did even a couple years ago they did like the remastered stuff. Like that was a blast to kind of like revisit those old classics. I love the Spyro series. I know they got a lot out of that even in more recent years because they did like Skylanders and stuff like that. But I don't know, keep on doing high quality like Spyro stuff would be great. Sly Cooper I think is severely underrated and hasn't been around in a long time. If they brought back like Sly Cooper games, that would be awesome. Which, I mean, listeners of our show know I haven't played, but like everyone I know has played it and loves it. And so that's even more the reason, like, I would love them to keep making more. And like, okay, I could jump in and try this series that, I haven't been able to experience before. I want to say Crash Bandicoot, but of course that's owned by Xbox now. So that's not going to happen, which is weird to think about. I don't know. They were just more adventurous though with their family stuff. Like I feel like, I don't know, my memories, I guess, of more family friendly games as a kid wasn't even first party PlayStation games. Like, I don't know, it was always like the weird, like movie license, like Disney license things and stuff like that, or third party stuff. But not as many game studios are doing stuff like that. So if it means like, okay, in order to solve that problem, has to be first party game studios doing it, then I don't know, I'm all about it. Get in there and do it.
Yeah. Mark, did you have one?
I was struggling to think of any. Like, I've never played any of the Sly Cooper games. I didn't own a PlayStation console until the PS3 era. So a lot of, by that time, they were out of the business. It seems like, other than Ratchet and Clank, that's the one that I have played a couple of those games, and they're awesome, but they're definitely not on the scale of like an AstroBot, right? Like,
Right.
I think they're much bigger games than that. But other than that, I struggle to think of any since the PlayStation 3 era outside of like Little Big Planet, any like family titles from them.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I mean, even like before we knew what Naughty Dog was working on, that was like me and Adrian talked about, like, man, bring back Jak and Daxter. Like the Jak and Daxter series was so great, so fun. I mean, they've told a story, they had multiple games, like, but still, like, I don't know, like, even if it's not Jak and Daxter, just something like, I wish Naughty Dog would go back to that kind of roots. Like Naughty Dog made Crash Bandicoot originally. They did Jak and Daxter. They did like these really fun, silly games, and then they just went dark with Last of Us and Uncharted. They got so serious, and now all their games are so dark and serious and sad. I'm like, no, bring back fun Naughty Dog. Can we get fun Naughty Dog back?
That's the story with Sucker Punch too, right? That they had made the Sly Cooper games, and then we're like, no, now we do Infamous, and no, now we do the Ghost of Tsushima and Yotai, which is cool, like games I'm interested in. But
I wonder if, do you remember when Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze was announced and people were so mad that that's what Retro was working on? I wonder if Naughty Dog announced like, hey, we're doing like a cartoon platformer, what the response would be. Like, would, because what Naughty Dog is now, they've been for 15 years, maybe longer. Like, I think it would be so crazy to see what the response from fans would be if they were like, all right, we're doing like a 3D platformer family game. Although I will say, to me, it looks like whatever that new game that they announced not that long ago from Naughty Dog, their new IP, that seems like it is like more tongue in cheek, like a little bit more fun, more of like in the vein of Uncharted than like The Last of Us.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
totally.
I agree with that.
Totally.
And also, I don't think you can ever gauge anything by how Naughty Dog fans are reacting to the announcement of a new game, because that is always a cesspool, the worst part of humanity. So
yes, 100%. Oh man, well that is it for the news stories this week. We do have one more update though. Would you like me to read that, Patrick, or do you want to?
No. It's we can just key it up. Mark and I have been keeping careful track of what new games have been added to the Nintendo Music app on phones. And every Monday they've been updating it with one new game. So it's a very slow trickle. And today, Monday, the 17th of February, they added StreetPass Me Plaza from the 3DS. Mark, I know you're a big StreetPass fan.
I love that they're digging deep for this stuff. Like, who is the audience for the Nintendo Music app? You're a subscriber to Nintendo Switch Online. Like they could just be playing the hits. They could just be rolling out Mario game after Mario game, Zelda game after Zelda game. But they're like, no, this week we're doing brain training. And, like you're either on board for brain training or you're not. Like, I like that they're mixing in these kind of like more esoteric titles,
wild choices
that aren't just necessarily something that everybody has played before, or because there are still like pretty big gaps in that Nintendo Pantheon library that just hasn't made it to the Nintendo Music app, and so I kind of love that.
Oh man, so good. Yeah, I don't have any experience with StreetPass. By the time I got a 3DS, it was after like everything had been shut down. So, I don't know. I'll have to check this album out and see what I was missing out on.
Yeah, I feel like any of these like complete game soundtracks are so funny to me because 90% of it I find like just totally skippable. But there is, like some real good stuff in this one. Some great like summer day hangout, just like vibe music. That's really good. I'm sorry to say, I have one other news story that I feel like we just have to cover from the Nintendo side that I didn't add to the list. But we, in addition to tracking the Nintendo Music app, we've also been tracking very closely everything that's happening with Nintendo Sound Clock Alarmo. Garrett, are you familiar with Nintendo Sound Clock Alarmo? Do you own a Nintendo Sound Clock Alarmo? How excited are you on a scale from 1 to 10? 10 being the most excited for a Nintendo Sound Clock Alarmo to be in your life.
Okay, I am aware of the Alarmo. When it was first announced, I was maybe like an 8.5 excitement level until I realized it was high, honestly. High. And then I realized, I'm a married man, and that would never work in my bedroom. My wife would kill me, and also I don't know how it works with tracking 2 people on a bed. So, but no,
it doesn't.
I honestly, it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't at all. Only for single. I guess I'll just get to get my own bed, but sleep down here in my office on the floor or something. No, I honestly. It's stupid, but it looked like a lot of fun. It looks like fantastic fun that I wish I could participate in. But yeah, unfortunately, probably never will until my wife passes away. And I hope that never happens. Just to get real dark here for a second.
Well, I guess if that does happen, and God forbid it does, the
when
silver
I'm 93 years old.
Yeah, exactly. That you can get a Nintendo Sound Clock Alarmo. I similar situation. There's no way that like I could ever actually use a Nintendo Sound Clock Alarmo in my life, but I did buy it before I even watched the trailer because I was so worried that I wasn't going to be able to get one. But worry no longer. That's the news. That's the news item I wanted to get to because Nintendo of America announced on X that anyone can purchase.
This is a Twitter household. I'm sorry. This is a Twitter household.
Twitter. Okay. Announced on Twitter that anyone can purchase a Nintendo Sound Clock Alarmo. You no longer have to be a Nintendo Switch Online subscriber in order to order one. So anyone is freely available in North America to buy a Nintendo Sound Clock Alarmo. That's the exciting update. Yeah.
That's
I love that. Amazing. Thank you for the update. I have two important observations here. One is that you are both cowards. You can put the Nintendo Sound Clock Alarmo on your nightstand and just let it function like a normal clock. It doesn't need to make noise if you don't want it to. That's observation number 1. Number 2 is, Mark, I like that now you and I have fully transitioned to only calling this device Nintendo Sound Clock Alarmo. We had a conversation when it was originally announced being like, what do we call this thing? Do we call it Alarmo or Nintendo Sound Clock Alarmo? And I feel like we wavered for a little bit. And now you just talking about this news story right now, I feel like canonized it. It's Nintendo Sound Clock Alarmo.
Yeah, I don't know because I feel like because we're guests on Garrett's show that if a listener of his show isn't familiar with Nintendo Sound Clock Alarmo, I wanted to use the full nomenclature so it'd be easier for them to look it up online. On our own show, I don't know what will happen. Well, we'll just have to see. We'll just have to see.
I think we like saying Nintendo Sound Clock Alarmo.
Yeah, I mean that sounds like something that we would do, but I will say that I think we said we just wanted to call it Alarmo. Like I think we made the call at one point or another. But people change. People change.
That's right. Okay. It's okay to change. Oh man. Well, that is fantastic. Thank you so much for those updates. I need to jump on the Nintendo Music app ASAP. Because my kid, I was telling you guys before the show, but my kids love listening to that from Animal Crossing to Mario, the Mario Kart soundtrack, you name it. They love it. So add one more on the playlist for them to check out for something they'll never be able to experience. That is a fun thing, though. Like the other ones that are games that they can actually play, like they'll listen to music like, oh, can we try that game? I'm like, yeah, sure. Next time I jump on the 3DS, I can fire it up or whatever. Like, I don't know. This is kind of a cool way to introduce them to fun little games. Anyways, with that, it is now time for the ad portion of our show. So I'm going to break into that for our feed, and you guys will break into your ad on your feed. I think is how that will work. So see you on the other side with whoever you're listening to. All right, this is the part of the show where I tell you to go to patreon.com/supergamerboys and support us over there starting at just $1 a month. That's right, $1 gets you episodes early and ad-free each and every, well, whenever the episodes come out. We're bi-weekly now. But each time an episode comes out, you get those early and ad-free, as well as exclusive access to our Patreon-only shows, whether it's Super Later Boys or previous seasons of Super Gamer Book Club, Season 1, hosted by Zetch, an old host of ours, only available over there. So think about supporting us there, just $1. We got a $5 tier. You get that previous perk plus the show notes each and every episode, so you know what we're going to be talking about, where you can leave your own questions, comments, concerns, thoughts on anything on there. If you want to answer the listener questions or leave your 2 cents on the nerdy nudes, or let us know what game you've been playing, support us at that $5 a month level and you get those show notes. Leave a comment just to say hey if you want to. It's fun. It's always interesting to see what people come up with over there. You can also support us at the $10 a month level and get all those previous perks, plus a shout out at the top of each and every episode with our Super Gamer sponsors. And then the top dog tier, Patreon producer, $15 a month. You get all those previous perks. And the fun thing about this perk is the ability to pitch a segment, or heck, just have your own segment here on our show, on our social media, wherever it might be. In the past, Adrian had his Super Indie Boys. Just even a few months ago, we had Kajoma's Card Game Corner on our Instagram feeds, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts. So, if you got a fun little segment you'd love for us to try out, or if you want to be a part of the show, support us at $15 a month. And join in the fun. We appreciate it. So check that out, patreon.com/supergamerboys. And a couple other places you can support us over at sgbstore.com. Buy some sweet merch. It may be winter, but our Summer Gamer Boys collection is still up. I have not taken that down. So go buy some swim trunks. Summer's coming soon. You're gonna need some swim trunks. Go ahead and buy those. Get the hats, t-shirts and shorts and whatever you need for the upcoming summer, plus some of our classic merch with our logo on it. Go show us some support, show us some love. We'd appreciate that. And last but not least, if you're watching live on Twitch, which you aren't this week because the stream went down, but you can go to twitch.tv/thesupergamerboys. Support us over there for free. If you have Amazon Prime, you can link that to your Twitch account and get a free Prime Gaming sub each and every month. It doesn't cost you a cent. We get the support from that, and you get access to our emotes and ad-free viewing. So think about throwing that sub our way. You have to re-up it each and every month. If you forget to, unfortunately, it doesn't automatically do it. So here's your reminder. Go over to twitch.tv/thesupergamerboys, drop that free sub on our channel, and we will be eternally grateful to you. And with that, let's get back to the show. Alrighty, we are back at it here from our respective ad corners, teaming back up to answer the age-old question. Patrick, we'll start with you. What you playing?
What have I been playing? What did I write down? A couple weeks ago, I decided that I wanted to. Well, I was traveling, and I decided I wanted to play something that I had played before. I feel like I've not been good about revisiting stuff in the Switch generation, which has been going on for 8 years now. So I went back and I went back to Metroid Dread, a game that I love, and started playing it on hard mode, which is a bizarre challenge, because I tend to think of that game's pleasures not in how few hits I take from a boss, but more kind of based in exploration and stuff like that. But just this last week, I finally beat Dread on hard mode, beat Ravenbeak and everything. With maybe 53% item collection, but still felt really good. Felt really good doing it. Mark, you're shaking your head in disbelief.
It's just crazy to me. I wasn't able to beat Razorbeak on normal,
Ravenbeak.
On easy. Yeah. So congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank
That's
you.
insane.
It feels great. It unlocked the next level of difficulty, which is called Dread Mode. And Dread Mode, get this, everything kills you in one hit.
Boo.
What
Boo. So like it's the kind of thing where I'm like, okay, I can wrap my head around like doing all the boss fights without taking a hit. Like that's the kind of thing where I'm like, okay, you're practicing to, guard against individual moves and blah, blah, blah. But like, you'll just be running around and some like big slug thing will be slightly off screen as you fall down on top of it. You hit it, you die. It's awful.
No way.
So
Now,
I messed around with that for like 10 minutes and then put it away probably forever.
Is it like, is it just like you just go back to the last checkpoint, or does it even like, hey, sorry, game over, like start from the beginning of the game, like roguelike kind of thing? Like imagine, like when I hear the word dread, I'm thinking worst of the worst. So I'm thinking like, is this sending you back to the beginning of the game or just the checkpoint?
I mean, it's just back to the last checkpoint, which is bad enough. But yeah. No, I can't imagine I'm going to dip back into dread mode, but I ended up really loving playing this game on hard.
Wow. That's impressive, honestly, because I think I played on like easy and I still struggled with it. Like, it was so hard.
Yeah, totally.
Oh man, crazy. Anything else you've been playing?
Let's see. So I dipped back in kind of because I knew that we were going to be talking about PlayStation making family games kind of based on AstroBot's success. I went back into AstroBot because I hadn't touched it since like the weekend it came out and I platinumed it. But I was checking out the new levels that they've added, the speedrun levels, and there's like a Christmas level, which is like a fun open world with lots of different power-ups that you can like switch between. Super cool. Really enjoyed the Christmas one. And I was having fun with the speed runs too, because then I could see where people who are, friends with me on PlayStation, how they scored in those things.
That's cool.
And it was fun to see, Kyle from our Discord listens to our show, seeing like his times on there, seeing like Christian Humes' times on there, seeing Matt Apodaca's times on there, and where I'm faster than them and where I'm not quite as fast as them was super fun.
Did they add all that stuff for free?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool.
And I know like a couple new levels are still coming out. So yeah, that's what they did that with the original one too. Is like, I mean, in preparation for AstroBot, but they added like a couple new levels to like Astro's Playroom and stuff like that. They're like, I don't know. I love when games do that. They're just like, all right, we're not gonna charge you an arm and a leg for some levels and stuff. Just keep the fun content coming. Here's new stuff. Right.
Yeah, here's some new stuff. Keep the game fresh. That's really cool. Yeah, I need to go. I knew that was coming, but totally forgot that it was so soon. So I need to go check that out for sure.
Check out. There's a bunch of neat stuff in there right now. And then the only other thing that I've been playing, I think Mark has also been playing, that Tetris 99 had a Tetris Maximus Cup this weekend, the theme of which was Donkey Kong Country Returns. So these are like little events that they hold in Tetris 99, where you score points for whatever level like you finish at, and you score 100 points, and you get to keep the theme forever. And as always, I go in for the 3 or 4 games that it takes me to get the 100 points, and then I can't stop until I get a win. So I think I played like 10 or 11 games before I got a first place finish. But man, Tetris 99 always works.
That's one of those games. I think I tried like 2 rounds and I'm like, no, not for me. Like I'm not good enough at it. I'm sure obviously with time I would, but very, very difficult for me. I'm a bad gamer. That's one thing my listeners know. I am the worst gamer, easy mode on everything, even if it has a narrative mode, even better, keep it simple for me.
Oh, I'm the same way, Garrett. Like the Tetris 99 Maximus Cups are the only time that I really go back to Tetris 99, and it's like I have to grind through it to get those 100 points. Actually, that I was at a work event this past week, and as part of it, there was like a Mario Kart 8 Deluxe like tournament, And some of the people at work know that I'm like a Nintendo fan. So they're like, oh, you're going to be so good at it. And I had to keep stressing to them, just because I play it doesn't mean I am good at it. And I lived up to that reputation. I was definitely not the best Mario Kart 8 Deluxe driver. But it's like a fine distinction. It's like, oh, I'm a fan. Like, I play it, but it doesn't mean I'm good. It doesn't mean that I'm like super skilled or anything. Yeah.
Oh man, so good. Yeah. So what about you, Mark? What have you been playing? Some Tetris 99. What's been your experience in this event? Did you eventually get the?
I did. I grinded it out. But so I eventually got the theme. I've actually been playing Donkey Kong Country Returns HD.
Nice.
Off and on, and I haven't touched it since the original came out in 2010. I really like Tropical Freeze. I'm having a hard time getting into the rhythms of Returns. I don't really know what the difference is. I just don't find it as fun. I don't find it as like inventive or really like as polished. I don't know. Maybe I haven't made a ton of progress. Like I'm at like just beginning the third world. So maybe I need to give it a little more time. But I think I was expecting to enjoy it more because I like Tropical Freeze so much that I'd just be able to kind of like pick up this one and really like run with it. But it's I don't know, there's something about it that I just find not as smooth. It's kind of hard to explain because it's like, yeah, like Donkey Kong is Donkey Kong and he has like a rhythm to him and everything, and it's not that it's unfun, it just feels like it's just not all clicking for me in the same way that I found Tropical Freeze to click.
Interesting. Is it like, so it's using like a similar engine to Tropical Freeze, I assume. So like it hypothetically should feel the same, right? Or is it by a different developer as well? I guess
So both, like the originals were both made by Retro, but I think that this HD version was made by a different studio. I don't know how much Retro was involved at all. And I don't know if it's like, I mean, it has been a while since I played Tropical Freeze, so maybe my memory of it also isn't like maybe I would go back to Tropical Freeze and struggle with it as well. I just sort of think of Tropical Freeze as being like really inventive and really like exciting and putting you in unique locations with like interesting enemies and like, you know, the music plays such a big part of Tropical Freeze, and the music just isn't as good in Returns. Like there's not that cohesion of like design and music and platforming that I enjoyed so much in Tropical Freeze. So it's just been interesting because I just feel like I'm kind of like grinding through this one instead of like really looking forward to what each level is going to bring.
Okay. So that almost sounds like then like, so you had said you would play the original or no?
Yes, but it was, 15 years ago or something. So,
because that almost sounds like it's more like a problem than with like just the original necessarily wasn't as good as, and so now you're replaying it and maybe just realizing like, oh, maybe the original was as good as I remember it kind of thing, or is that part of it, or
very possibly. I mean, Tropical Freeze came out after, and it makes sense that they would have improved on it in a lot of ways. It was their second attempt at a Donkey Kong game, and so maybe just and I do think even though the Switch version is great because it doesn't have some of the the motion controls that made the first game feel so stop and go, like having to blow the flowers and stuff. But like the flowers still exist, like if you want to really explore the world, you still have to do those sorts of things. And maybe that's what I feel like breaks up the rhythm of the platforming, is constantly having to stop to be like, okay, well, what is, now I'm going to like stop all my momentum, blow on this flower, see if it has a puzzle piece, and then I'm going to keep going. And so maybe that's part of what I'm reacting to.
Yeah. Like it just feels strange on the Switch compared to like, even though it's still disruptive on the Wii, it was out on before, right? Like it's
that's where it originally launched.
Yeah, it just feels even stranger on a handheld device, maybe. Yeah, interesting. Anything else you've been playing?
The other thing I've been playing is on Nintendo Switch Online, the Plus expansion pack. They have Sega Genesis games. And for our Patreon for February, we're playing ToeJam and Earl, which I have never played before. Did not really understand what I was getting into. Do you have any experience with Toe Jam and Earl, Garrett?
Oh, Toe Jam and Earl was one of those games we would like pick up from Blockbuster and play a little bit of. And I don't think I ever got very far. Never. Yeah, not a game I ever completed, and not a game I think I fully understood as a child, like what I was doing. But it was just a fun little world that we'd pop into like for a few days while we rented it, and then that was about it. So it almost feels like this weird like fever dream, honestly. Like,
yeah,
barely remember it, but yeah.
I think that's a fair summation of Toe Jam and Earl. Like it's a roguelike. I was not expecting that at all. Like it is so different from what I thought. I thought it was gonna be like a platformer. I've always conflated it in like Earthworm Jim in my head. And so I was expecting more of like an Earthworm Jim type platforming game with like gross out humor and all that kind of stuff. And it's really not. Like I'm playing as Earl, just like this big pink like Patrick Star like character that's just slowly making his way around. It is not what I expect. It's just not what I expected at all. But I find myself drawn to it. Like I keep wanting to go back and continue to make progress. It's been the strangest thing because you first started up and it's just mind-boggling everything that the game presents to you. But there is something about the game loop that I am finding so satisfying. I don't know. It's been a very interesting experience. To be experiencing this game for the first time.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like I saw it on there and I thought about giving it a try, and I'm like, no, I don't know. Like I've never. It's one of those games where like you hear a lot about, but I've never heard people be like, you gotta play it. It's a must play. It's always been like, oh, you remember that game? Yeah, and then everyone just kind of moves on. So it's just like, is it like? But now you guys have been playing it for a little bit, like. Is there any sort of like, oh no, there's actually some fun parts to it, or is it kind of like overall like, it's fine? I don't know.
For me personally, I have a like almost begrudging respect for it. I think that I have a hard time recommending it, being like, no, Garrett, you've got to play Toe Jam and Earl. But now that I've played it, I'm like, wow, I can't believe that this is a thing that exists. I think that's where I'm at with it. I can't believe that this is a thing that exists. For good and for ill.
Would you say so? In my mind, I put both this and other recent entry in our NCS Arcade series, Echo the Dolphin, in similar buckets, where it's like these are games that the Genesis kids were like, no, we've got these games, they're cool, and playing Echo the Dolphin like did not bear out this is cool, it's interesting, but do you think that like Toe Jam and Earl falls in that same kind of category?
I think it's so much better than Echo the Dolphin.
Okay, great.
And like to me, it feels like one of those games where it could be an indie game today in a lot of ways.
Sure.
In a lot of ways, it's like very difficult to play because it has a lot of that, like it's almost too big for its britches. Like, kind of like constrained in weird ways by the 16-bit of it all. But at the same time, I think they made one more recently, like a fourth entry in it. And I don't know that you would want it to be a modern experience either. Like it feels like it should be hermetically sealed. And it's just like, yes, this makes total sense in its time and place. And nowhere else nowhere else does any of this make sense. This should not exist. I think that's really what it shouldn't exist. It's the craziest experience to me. Toe Jam and Earl is just totally bananas.
Oh, that's amazing. I love it. Oh man. Well, for myself, real quick, I guess I'll give an update to our listeners who have kind of been keeping up on it. Playing some more Resident Evil 4 remake. And this is my first time ever playing Resident Evil 4. I'd never played it.
Whoa, that's awesome.
Which is, somehow I just totally missed it on GameCube and PS2 and stuff back in the day. But playing it for the first time now, and I I've gone back and forth on like loving it and being just kind of like meh on it, never hating it, but there's just like a few moments where I was just kind of like, all right, what's going on here? And I think it more came off of, to kind of catch you guys up to speed, like recently playing like Resident Evil 8, honestly, jumping into 4, it almost felt like a lot of these assets feel recycled. This feels like the same world. Like I was really hoping for this new exciting world, because that's what it was with like 7 came out and I was like, oh, this is new and exciting. And then they had like 2 remake and I'm like, ooh, this is new and exciting. I'd never played 2 before either. Man. And then 3 came out and I was kind of like, oh, I don't care for 3, but it was the same as 2. It kind of felt, and the remake, from what I understand too, is like even people who played the other game was like, 3 remake was okay,
Yeah, I mean that was true of the original games as well. That like two was such a big deal when it came out, and then 3 was like, okay,
yeah. And so and then playing 8, I'm like, oh man, this is cool. Like vampires, crazy, or not vampires, werewolves and crazy stuff. This is neat. And then for 4 remake to come out, and there haven't been werewolves and stuff like that, but just the world itself, like the little small villages and castles, and I'm like, oh, okay, feels like they took the map from 8 and just dropped slightly different enemies, and now everyone's speaking. It's supposed to be in like Spain, right? Everyone's speaking Spanish. I don't know.
Yeah, they're speaking Spanish. Yeah,
so it's like. So it was kind of samey for a little bit, but I don't know, I'm getting to a point now where things have opened up kind of for the first time. Like things were very narrow for the first couple chapters. Okay. I'm in chapter like 5 or 6 now, and like I'm at the lake where I can like boat around and get to different areas.
So did you fight Del Lago?
Yeah, like the big like fish thing in the So I beat that, and now it's like, okay, I get this now. Like this feels a little better. I haven't played much of it, maybe only like 45 minutes, 30 minutes or so in this new area, but I'm coming back around on it. I'm enjoying it. I'm hoping to be able to play more. I need to do some runs on my Steam Deck, because I generally play most of my games. Honestly, for the last like year and a half, I've been like 98% of the time I'm playing on my Steam Deck. Like I only touched my PlayStation last year for AstroBot. That was it. My PS5 didn't turn on any other time, and my Switch only turns on for like Mario Kart or Mario Party with my kids. So I'm Steam Deck almost 100% of the time now, which is amazing. So it's one of those things where like buying games now through Steam, it's like, all right, is it compatible? And supposedly 4 is somewhat compatible. So I have a plane ride flying up to Seattle on Wednesday, and I'm hoping maybe I can get into some Resident Evil 4 time and get a little further in it, but we'll see.
You'll need something to do when you get to the airport early.
Yeah. I mean, when I'm there 6 hours early,
Oh, jeez.
I'll finish the game by then. No, just kidding.
It's too much.
That's so, it's really interesting to hear you talk about your experience with Resident Evil 4, having played 7 and 8, because for me, Resident Evil, I haven't played the remake, but when I played the version, like I most recently played it when it was released on Switch, and having played it on GameCube and then Wii and then on Switch, it's like Resident Evil 4 is like a nostalgia thing for me. And so it's so interesting. Like, yeah, I can totally see how having played 7 and 8 and now going back even to the remake of 4, that it would feel like almost like old hat, I don't want to like spoil anything for you, but I will be really curious to hear how you felt about it after it ends, if you don't really like the corridor aspect of the beginning of the game. That's exciting. I haven't played. Did you play the 4 remake, Patrick?
No, I never got around to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd held off for a while. I was excited when it first came out. It was like last spring, but it was one of those things where it's just like, there's lots of games coming out all the time. Like it gets expensive, but it was like a winter sale. Just like the beginning of January, Steam had this crazy sale where I was able to get like Star Wars Survivor, Hogwarts Legacy, this game, and like a couple other games, all for like $80.
Oh my gosh.
And a lot, like 2 of the like all those games came out within the last like year or 2. And I'm like, okay, this is a steal. So I was like, for the price of one game, I got like 4 or 5 new games, which was awesome. And so found my chance to jump in there, and been stoked to get into it. It looks pretty too. Playing on like I said, up until I've mostly been playing on my PC. I've been scared to try it on my Steam Deck just because of how big it is. Like it barely runs on my PC and it looks gorgeous. I'm like, ooh, I don't know if we'll see how it looks. It might run on the Steam Deck, but it's like a potato. It's just like bad graphics, but we'll see.
That RE engine is good.
It is. Yeah, it is impressive, especially when you give it the power. It uses a lot of power, but man, it's impressive what they do with that. I mean, they've been using that for years now. Like trying to remember, since 7, right? Or was it even before 7?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think 7 was the first like big game that was using it.
Very impressive. Fun game so far. Again, it's like, it'll be interesting to see how it all pans out once I get through it. But with that, let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. This is a supersized episode. We usually shoot for like an hour and a half. We're on the record time, 2 hours, 6 minutes. Whoops. That's all right. We had to combine 2 whole shows together, right? Like we did some of your segments. Some
fair point. Segments. Yes.
So there you go. Thank you all so much for listening. We appreciate each and every one of you. You guys are awesome. Remember, you can support us over at patreon.com/supergamerboys or at patreon.com/Nintendo Cartridge Society.
Nailed it.
You can also buy some merch at sgbstore.com. I don't know if you guys have merch. I can make some merch for you, sell it on our store. Helps your merch, help support our channel. No, just kidding. Rate and review us where you can, whether Apple Podcast or Spotify now does reviews. So throw some stars over there, leave a review, leave some comments on the episodes. Shout out
and if you're listening to this on, just a quick, if you're listening to this on our feed, on the Nintendo Cartridge Society feed, check out the Super Gamer Boys podcast. They're doing this stuff all the time, and it's always this good.
It is fun. Although it's sad Adrian's not here. He's my other half.
It is sad
Adrian's usually me and Adrian doing it. He's on a little bit of hiatus for a couple months here, but so we're gonna have guests. It's gonna be a fun little experiment the next couple months. Just a new guest every episode. But stay tuned, and he'll be back eventually. He'll be back, or listen to some past episodes. Shout out to Jack, Sriracha, Yate, and DJ Trooz again for allowing us to use their music on the show. Make sure to go look them up on Apple Music and Spotify. Links will be in our show description over here. Where can people find you guys at? I want to give you guys the floor here. Social medias or any cool projects you guys are working on, your podcast. Like what? Patrick, go ahead and throw some plugs out there if you got some.
Oh yeah, I mean it's don't worry about social media. Not really hanging out there anymore. But just mostly the Nintendo Cartridge Society podcast, where you can listen to Mark and I talk about Nintendo stuff all the time, twice a week. And then, of course, I have the hardcover collection of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle source book, which is an encyclopedia about the Turtles IDW comics that I wrote, which is coming out on March 4th, available everywhere you buy books. So check that out. It's 400 pages of facts and some made up and some well-sourced about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
That's amazing. I was just talking with someone the other day, and I was like, somehow Turtles came up. They were super into some stuff, and I didn't grow up super into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Like I watched the show here and there, but I don't know. When I was talking with them, and after hearing that, you were working on the source book, because it came out last year, right? Not the hardcover one, but like the original print of it.
So it was released in separate issues. There are like 4 100-page issues that came out over the course of last year, and it's being collected now.
I was just recently talking to someone. I was like, man, I gotta get a hold of that. So now that I know there's a hardcover coming with all of it together, that sounds epic, actually. Mark, what about you? You got any plugs or anything we should check out?
I will just plug our patreon.com/Nintendo Cartridge Society, where you should follow us for free, because everybody who follows us on Patreon on any level gets free episodes that we put out, where we're responding to listener feedback about the games that we've been playing, and also just talking about things like Patrick's time working at Hollywood Video. So you kind of get it all. So you follow us over there.
That's amazing. I love it. You can also find us over at supergamerboys.com, Twitter and Instagram at supergamerboys. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at gmorlang. And with that, I just want to say a big ol' thank you to Patrick and Mark from Nintendo Kart Society. Thank you so much for joining me here on the show. And thank you so much for letting me join you on your show this week.
That's right. That's right. Thank you for joining us.
It was such an honor. I'm so thankful that I got to host your show. I know it's hard as a host to let someone else do that. And I appreciate you letting me not only be a guest, but just take over your show pretty much. So
I still got to say all the 433 stuff. It's all good.
Yeah. There you go. Cool. And with that, well, here's our ending here. You can do whatever you want for Nintendo Kart Society, but over here we say, we are the Super Gamer Boys, and we'll catch you on the flippity flop. And there we go. We did it. We did the thing.
There we go.
Very good.